Saw 3D, or Saw the Final Chapter, which is a big fat lie.
So that was a fucking lie.
Released in 2010, Saw the Final Chapter is the 7th installment of the Saw franchise. It's directed by Kevin Greutert, who also directed the 6th one, which is shocking because those two movies could not be more different. Spoiler warning for Saws 1 through 6. The A and B plots of Saw the Final Chapter boil down to this. Mark Hoffman is still setting up games and being on the run, this time from an officer in internal affairs, played by the dumb friend from Final Destination. Meanwhile, a man who claims he survived a jigsaw trap and wrote a book and is getting a lot of publicity and fame for it, is taken and put in an actual jigsaw trap, because it turns out he was not being entirely truthful. Liar! Now you might be asking, did I like this movie? It's directed by the same guy who did 6, so maybe. Let me put it this way. I'd rather put hot needles in my eyes and run into oncoming traffic than watch this movie again.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but
I have now seen it twice, and that is 2 times too many. Let me get the one pro out of the way, because there's only one good thing about this movie, and surprisingly, it's not Tobin Bell as Jigsaw. I'll explain more later. The one thing I like about this movie is the main guy in the game. I like the last trap he has to get out of to finish the game. I like the concept behind where the idea came from. Other than that, this movie is a big pile of horse dung. Let's see if I can even begin to wrap my head around the cons. This movie was filmed to be in 3D, so there are a lot of those really, really bad, oh, it's coming right at you shots that only work if you're in a 3D movie, and even then, it's not even that cool. This happened in some of the Friday the 13th movies, Jaws 3D. They're really, really cheesy shots, and every time you see them, you just laugh. Parts of this movie don't even feel like a Saw movie, and the others feel too much like a Saw movie. And what I mean by that is, like, at the beginning, there's a public Saw trap, and it doesn't even feel like a Saw movie because it feels unlike anything Jigsaw had done in the past. And other parts, they go too far trying to make it feel like the other Saw movies where you're like, can we pump the brakes a little bit? I don't want all of this. I almost feel bad for calling the other movies gory because this one has 10 times the gore of all the other ones combined. It's really ridiculous. There's even instances where there are shots that are usually only reserved for spoof movies where someone will get cut or something and you'll cut to a wall and it looks like someone just took a bucket of red paint and threw it on the wall. It's so cheesy. It's almost like that happens in Freddy vs. Jason. And it's, if you want me to take your movie seriously, don't do that. It'll make me laugh, but sometimes not in a good way. I think they really were planning to end the franchise here because this was the last movie for a number of years. So they really go for broke, including as many Saw traps as they can. I was trying to count them up, and I didn't even get a final number, but there's like twice as many as in any of the other movies. It's crazy. That being said, some of the traps are lazy, and it was almost like they were running out of ideas, so why even include that many? There's so many that some are like crazy elaborate where you're like, what? And some are just so boring. It's so inconsistent. The main guy in the trap is played by the guy who was in the Boondock Saints, not Norman Reedus, the other one. And he tries his best, but he is not given a lot to work with. And all the dialogue in this movie is bad, so even the actors that you know are good, that you've seen in other stuff, you're like, this is really bad. Jill Tuck is given even more to work with in this movie, which is really, really bad for the story because her acting is not good and her storyline is terrible. So it's like, what made you think that we wanted that as an audience? Some of the shots of blood and gore look fine, like any other horror movie, and some look really fake. Like, they look like dummies, and it makes you wonder, why did you even try to do that if you knew that you weren't going to be able to do it convincingly? Much like Saws 3 and 6, the guy in the game moves from level to level, going through different traps, and there are 7 different levels, so you start to get really bored and really wanting us to just get to the conclusion, and you're just sitting there like, oh my god, I don't care! It almost feels like when you would play that game Telephone as a kid, where someone would say something to another person and you keep going down the line, and by the last person, they'd say something that wasn't anywhere close to the first one. That's what happened with the Saw franchise. It's nothing like the original. And the twist ending is the worst twist ending I have ever seen in a movie. It's so bad that it ruins other things from some of the good Saw movies. It's absolutely unforgivable. Not to mention that the poster doesn't make a lick of sense. What's happening? Why are we building Jigsaw? It doesn't factor into the story. Oh, and Tobin Bell has one scene in this movie, and in it, They dress him like he's a 6th grader. It looks so dumb.
How do you do, fellow kids?
In all the other movies, he dresses like a normal person. Why did they do that to him here? It doesn't make sense. When all is said and done, this is an awful, awful movie that shouldn't have ever been included in the franchise, and I kind of wish they would have taken every copy and buried them with all the old E.T. Atari games out in the desert. After much thought and consideration, I've decided that I can't give this more than a 1 out of 10, because this is a skid mark on the underwear of cinema. I feel dumber now that I've rewatched that movie.
Everyone in this room is now dumber.
You know, I'm really glad they decided to make movies after this one, because if this was the end of the franchise, that'd be like stumbling at the finish line and tripping and busting your head open and bleeding all over the place.
Relax.
Well, if you like this review, hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and check back for more content later.
You are perhaps my greatest asset.
No, don't like that.
Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.